Hi, Dave Webster here again. I'm just going to have a short video here on the local Sudbury media, in this particular case, the Sudbury Star. I'm going to try not to repeat myself because the details are certainly on my website, and I've mentioned some of the issues surrounding what the Sudbury media knows on my video to Sam Bruno, who this website is in part dedicated to. So I'd really like to just cover some of the specifics of the Sudbury Star. Suffice it to say that the Sudbury Star is absolutely aware of basically all the issues that I've raised on my website. In particular, the information as to exactly why Ontario patients are must have the most restricted access to PET scanning in the world. Over the years, I've met numerous times with the Sudbury Star reporters, various Sudbury Star reporters, trying to get this story out. I have handed them all the documentation itself, the actual letters, the motions of the Canadian Association of Nuclear Medicine declaring these trials as unethical, and so on. And of course, you don't see any of that because I assure you that deliberate decisions behind the scenes have been made to not only keep the story from you, but there are instances, as you will see, where they have actively either changed what I've said or suppressed, just simply won't publish what I said because it doesn't happen to fit with what they would like you to know and how they would like you to know it. And make no mistake about it, the role of the Sudbury Star, like media in general, is to protect politicians. In this case, the last thing they want to do is embarrass Mr. Bartolucci with the information that they have. There have been numerous visiting dignitaries to Sudbury, including Mr. George Smitterman, who was the bulldog behind this whole process to block PET very effectively for the Liberal government when he introduced that many years ago. He's been here a couple of times. The Ombudsman sent somebody to Sam's house to explain why the Ombudsman had dismissed all the concerns of the international experts and buried those reports from public scrutiny. And yet, of course, the Sudbury Star journalists were very polite, made sure they didn't ask any embarrassing questions. If you look on the Sudbury Star website, it says your news, paper for you. I mean, you have to decide yourself whether it's the news for us or whether it's really their site and their news. In particular, the more recent events that have occurred, besides over the years that I've had, is when Sam died, I wrote a letter to the editor. And in that letter to the editor, there was an 8 or 9 word sentence that the editor removed. So what I did was I called Mr. Brian McLeod, happened to be the editor I spoke to, and I said, "So Brian, you took that sentence," and he said, this is what he said. He said, "Dave, we had a space problem." You can imagine they had a space problem. The reality is, it turns out that what I had said in that sentence, they didn't want you to hear because they were actually doing a story related to some of that information the following day, and that's not the kind of information they wanted you to have because it might have gone against the impression they were trying to give about another story. Then after my letter to the editor, for Deb Matthews, our Minister of Health, if you can believe it, actually wrote the Sudbury Star. Don't know whether they altered her letter or not. What we did see was her basically patting Sam on the head as if he was sort of a believer in something that wasn't really true, but how nice of you to try to believe that, Sam, but we know better as the government kind of thing. And she mentioned a couple of points. So in response to that, what I did was wrote a short article simply easily countering all the information that she had on that. But you've not seen that. It wasn't published. So I called again Mr. McLeod. I said, so what happened? I mean, this was well within the allotted word limit. This is obviously very topical. Yet you haven't published it. He says, oh, didn't see that. I'll look at that. And of course, he looked at it, and then of course the decision was made not to release that because of the way that I had effectively rebutted what Mr. and Ms. Matthews, had said during those arguments. So one of the things you have to ask yourself is that, over the past year or two, there's been a lot of stories about PET, but you'll notice that the Sudbury Star nor any of the other media are actively searching me out. I'm the one that'll actually be reading off the PET scanner, and I am, one of Canada's PET experts. You might think that if they were really trying to get the story out, that they might have approached me. Of course, they don't want to talk to me because what I've done is made it very clear behind the scenes that I'm going to do exactly this. They are supposedly, reliable, trusted, objective, professional, unbiased reporters just getting the news out to you. But of course, what I know in you now probably knew all along, but because that's what media does. But what you need to understand is that they really insult Sam's memory. They not only have made active decisions to not share the story with you, the real story that Sam tried so hard to get out. As you see, they've actively either altered what I've said, removed what I've said, and this has happened repeatedly over the years, and so on. So this is simply reality. I think we all know that from the media, as I've said before. Nothing surprising here, but when it's this in your face, I think maybe this will drive home the message to people just what the Sudbury media and media in general is about. And as I've said on my, before in one of my other videos, this in the one about to Sam Brune, is I'm going to ask people to do an extraordinary thing. I'm going to ask them to follow me on this one, and consider, what I want you to do first of all, as foremost, is challenge the Sudbury Star among the other news media, and ask them to use the information that you now know that they have on PET, all the details, and I want you to get them to use that story to explain to you why it is our newspaper and that they should be somehow a trusted source of professional, unbiased, objective reporting. And secondly, challenge them as to why, with all this information at hand, you refuse to challenge Mr. Bartolucci with any of the embarrassing information that you have. Why, over the years, you've refused to discuss this with any of, with all the information you've had, you refuse to challenge the people. And supposedly you want us to believe that you're professional, unbiased, objective reporters just trying to get a story out. So please do that. And if you're not happy with the response you're getting from the Sudbury Star, I'm asking you, please consider canceling your subscription until they either cover the story, admit that they aren't interested in covering the story and why, or just say, just admit we're a propaganda device, we're just here to decide what we think you need to know and how you need to know it. So it's a big thing to ask, but you've got to remember that I've had people say to me, David, you can't challenge the media because that's the only way of getting a story out, and people in the PET steering committee are worried that if I challenge the media and threaten them like this, as it were, in some sort of fashion, I'm not be threatening them. I'm just asking them to say, look, you're media, right? You're news media, right? But you're not news media, of course, are you? If we in a fairy tale world thought that news was about getting the actual story out. The reality is, one of them actually said to me, Dave, you can't bite the hand that feeds you, but I think that's not a very good analogy because they're feeding you gruel, I assure you. They don't want, they insult Sam for me, they don't want the story out. So please consider it. Look at the rest of my website and you'll see what just get upset about the kind of information they have and absolutely have made decisions not to touch. Thanks for your support over the years, and let's get a PET scanner for Sudbury. Let's actually get some utilization of this thing, not just someplace to put a flower vase on, because if we don't challenge the government on these issues, that's essentially what it'll turn out to be. Thanks again.